saving the oil for important things. I don't think he specified or elaborated on what is important or critical to national security, but I think that's fait accompli. We probably won't have to wait much longer until we see militarization of oil production all around the country, just because without that, you don't run this military machine, you don't run trains across the country. So I think we will see that in time.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a way to segregate it, you know, where you could have some use that would be mandatorily from alternative sources. You know, like you could figure out some way to maybe say, you know, electric cars would be from, you know, this source and this source. I mean, you know, and segregate the sources of the electricity and make people pay a premium based on the source, you know, or something like that. But yeah, I mean, the energy, the bottom line is, you know, you're paying for it one way or another. Yeah, I just Dom gets his typing tonight instead of talking.
Is that Zomgitz, or is it somebody impersonating her?
Yeah, I think it's an impersonator. Yeah, you un-American. That doesn't sound like her. Yeah.
Anyway, I just am not so sure about how sustainable this whole, you know, the solar and wind solution is, just because for wind, for example, not that I'm against them, but just the amount of energy that goes into manufacturing the blades for these windmills. These are very high-tech, sophisticated components, and they consume a lot of oil, a lot of hydrocarbons in their manufacture. And same for solar panels. They're made with you know, very high-tech processes, manufacturing processes, and they consume a lot of hydrocarbons. So I think they have a shelf life. Your average solar panel has a shelf life of about 30 years. Okay, so what do we do 30 years from now? You know, are we still going to be able to use oil and hydrocarbon byproducts to make the substrates? I don't think so, unless we make them out of algae or something from the sea. I mean, I just don't see the sustainable solution in any of this. I don't mean to be a pessimist, but that's my realist view.
Yeah, well, like I said, I just think it just depends on how we behave. So there's a way out. It's just that the way out is not the way. We can't just do it the way we got into this mess. Yeah, we can't get out of it the same way we got in it. So the exit strategy is going to require us to dance a little, and no one seems to be interested in doing the dance, so it will be a mess. But yeah, I think, like I said, we can fix this so it's sustainable in the future. But to get there, we have to do certain things, and we're not going to come close to doing those things. You know, we have to stop population growth, and we have to balance industrialization, and you know, we have to learn to appreciate what we have and use it more graciously.
Right, and I think we're going to see that mindset in the next generation of leadership, because right now the preferred mode of communication for the younger generation is the internet, and it's becoming the mode for everybody else as well. But it's a whole new ballgame.
Go look at Stickam and see what room they're in. Okay, they're in the show me your nipple room, and you know, I mean, you know, they're not going to save us. The next generation is already fucking lost. I mean, they don't even have,
That's Stickam's a microcosm. I don't know if it necessarily represents the.
Well, I'm just saying YouTube then. YouTube. So go by the YouTube standard. Then it's Fred. You know, Fred and the Amazing Atheist. Oh yeah, the Amazing Atheist will save us. Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, okay. So we're talking about a voting constituency as opposed to leadership. So I think both are going to be affected by, you know, the attitude we're seeing now as far as needing alternative renewable energy, and that we are on the cusp of peak oil if we're not there already. Anyway, I think the younger generation understands this, and it'll show in the next wave of leadership, or the next generation of leadership. And so I think we're going to see it more and more, that these problems will be
Yeah, I'm
addressed.
sure. I mean, they're going to come up with some new Reaganomics. That's all they're going to come up with. They're going to come up with some green philosophy. You know, it'll be like some greenenomics. You know,
You're lagged out.
It'd be a big disaster.
I still have my money on the radical leftists maybe managing to do something, but who knows? Things are pretty fucked up.
Well, you know, even the radical leftists, people like James Lovelock in England, he's the guy that coined the term Gaia, the Gaia theory for, you know, the Earth. I mean, watch some of his videos on YouTube. I mean, they begin at pessimistic and go from there. They go down from there. I mean, that guy's, you know, he's as left and liberal as they come. And I mean, you want to, yeah, you want a dark vision of the future. And it's surprisingly, he's very optimistic about it. When cornered and said, well, you're talking about a die-off of 80–90% of the people on Earth. How can you be cheerful about that? And he says, because I think the Earth is going to be a better place once it's done. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably badly paraphrasing. Watch a couple of his videos. It's quite surprising where some of this is coming from.
Well, that sounds like Gary. The Earth will be better off without the human race. It'll flourish after.
Yeah, but I'm not unrealistic. I mean, I'm not going to argue that somehow you're going to get to that 10% number without blowing the planet to shit and turning it into a fucking cinder. So you're not even going to want to live here. And Cockroach City is all that's going to be left to for those 10%. They're not going to be living in some fucking utopia. They're going to be living in hell. You know, AK-47 city. Who the fuck cares? You're not going to want to live in that dark postman type future.
Yeah, I think if it was me, let's say, you know, subtract 30 years from my current age. If I was in my, you know, early 20s, late teens, early 20s, or even in my 30s, I'd be trying to find some place off the grid where you could grow your own food, a place with water, you know, arable soil, form a community of people that you could, you know, trade with, trade goods with. But I would get the hell out of suburbia. I'd get the hell out of big cities. I don't see them as being sustainable in any way. And as far as, you know,
well, nothing's sustainable though. Like I said, unless you're willing to put yourself behind a lot of barbed wire, then you're still not going to survive it. So I just don't, you know, this, you know, if I was 22 and in love, I might be able to make your argument, okay? Because then I'd have something so obvious to live for, you know, the precious young boobs. That yes, okay, I must save the precious young boobs from destruction, so I will, you know, try to find some place to hide on Earth from the disaster. But the point is once the zombies come flying out of New York, yeah, there ain't gonna be no fucking place to hide. You know, they're gonna cut your throat no matter where you are, unless you are well gated.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And you being there in New Jersey, I'm sure you're more well aware of that than most. I'm just saying, you know, it's a point of diminishing returns. Pushing 50, you know, I don't know that I want to go through the trials and tribulations of surviving in a post-collapse,
Yeah, no, I'm ready. I'm all set to put myself. I'll be right on the front line. I'll say, yeah, use me. Like, you know, where the old days where they piled up the wagons? Yeah, use me. Use me as a wagon. You know, because yeah, no, I'm not gonna fight to survive, so I can live in shit. Yeah, fuck that. You know, so I can live. You know, ah man, let's see if we can go find a 5-year-old bag of peanuts to eat. Who the fuck wants to live in that world?
No, I'm in complete agreement. Yeah, I came to that conclusion a couple of years ago. I mean, you got to have a reason to live. You got to have family, or like you said, somebody, a blonde with big tits, somebody you want to survive the, you know, the the post-disaster
I'll tell you,
world with. You got to have a
But
reason.
we have the luxury. But we have the luxury of speculating on, that we just go out easily if it came to that, because we wouldn't want to live in a post-apocalyptic world. But self-preservation, your whole, the way your brain works, by the time that situation would happen, if you were alive, would completely change, I believe, and self-preservation would kick in, and you'd be scraping for every minute of your life, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a luxury to speculate on it now.
I'm not saying that psychology isn't there, but there is a time when you finally just say, well, I'm going to go out today for my firewood and freeze to death in the snow. I mean, it's a point where you just kind of know this really isn't worth fighting for your life. And you just don't, you know what I mean? You might like, okay, well, I'll put on my boots, okay? I'll do that much, but I'm not going to strap on the gun and do all, you know what I mean? And you really need to, and you just don't do it, So there'll be a time where you just won't load your gun, kind of thing. And you'll let it be an accident, but it'll be an accident on purpose.
It's funny you mention that, because I think that could be the scenario that played out ultimately. You would fight for every minute, and then after a while there'd be a point where you gave up. And it makes me think of Robert Scott Falcon and his expedition at the turn of the century to the South Pole, and his journey back with 3 other men, and they all wind up freezing just 11 miles from their large hut. One of the gentleman just couldn't take it anymore, and he said, I'll be leaving for a while, just out to take a walk. Well, that was ridiculous. They were in the middle of the South Pole, and it was a blizzard, and he walked out of their tent while they were all freezing and having blisters, and he was never seen again. So he just walked out to his death knowing it. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because I could see that psychology playing out.
That's so interesting, Spaz. I mean, that was the first example that came to my mind. What Scott said to Oates, I'm going out. I may be some time. So I don't know. That's pretty weird, synchronicity. But yeah, I mean, that's been considered, one of the ultimate heroic sacrifices. He gave up his rations so that the other men might live. I think they all died, right? I mean, not one of them made it back, I believe.
Yeah. Besides the fact that not one of them lived, and they had to endure the whole time walking back, knowing that they didn't make it to the pole first. That Edmundson, or whatever his name was, got there first.
But so we don't get too far off track. I mean, it's a good point that you made about the built-in desire, urge to survive. It's primal, it's visceral, and that's certainly a very strong force. So I can't say 100% that, like Scott, I'm gonna go out for that walk and maybe some time, but this idea of, like Gary said, struggling, working your fingers raw for a bag of, month-old peanuts. I mean, boy, it's not even diminishing returns. It's like no returns. Is that kind of a life is on a par with just barely existing. It's not something, as selfish as it sounds, it's not something I'd want to subject.
Well, I just don't think we have the same obligations, mentality, whatever it takes to do that shit, because we kind of seen it, you know what I mean? We've seen the movie. We've seen the Grapes of Wrath, you know what I mean? And we kind of know, oh yeah, it really doesn't work out. You know what I mean? Even though they're happily metaphorizing in the end, this doesn't have a happy ending, really. I mean, the happy ending is that you just resign yourself to feudal life. So I mean, I'm just saying that, yeah, we sort of can't just get caught up in the idea that, okay, yeah, we're just going to live hand to mouth like bugs, and I just saying, to me, it's almost like it's a head game, and we have too much, we're too smart.